Hi, ladies and gentlemen. We are back. I wish you a happy new year 2026. We are back with the SAP IP Business Talks. This is a live show, and for all of you who already know what we are doing here, you know that we see what you comment and what you ask. And when there is any comment and any ask which you would like to give us in the studio during our live talk, so I'm happy to pick that up and to talk about that with our guest. And we are today in Germany, so not far away from where I'm located in the south of Germany. Johannes is with me today, and we talk about an so for me an absolutely fascinating topic. So what Johannes is doing is he's managing director at a company called Patenza, and the he develops AI strategies for law firms, for IP firms, to master digital transformation. So this is really something which drives me around for at least 2 years or longer, and it is really a transformational process and a very fast one and very fascinating. So thank you so much. Johannes, that you take the time to join us today here. Thank you for being in the show. And so I ask you a question which I'm asking every guest in that program, and this is the question: how did you came into that strange field of IP?
Yeah, thank you, Alex. It's a pleasure. Well, I kind of grew up with it, I'd say. My grandfather was a patent attorney already, my father as well, and my brother as well, and my other brother and sister are law attorneys at law for IP. So, yeah, it was all around in our family, and I still remember like discussions at the kitchen table about patents or trademarks. So,
Wow.
it was always a fascinating topic. It's, I think, a very interesting niche that so few people actually know about. So everybody knows the word patent, but what patents really do, how they work, their role in our economy, I think there's so few people who actually have deeper knowledge in that and
I mean, there's
like
this
being
fascinating saying,
specialized.
can you patent my trademark?
Yeah, exactly. We all know that. I love the field, and especially I love the free professions. So, be it tax consultants or other attorneys at law, I think the free professions with their reliability, their high quality standards, their high educational standards, quality standards are very important, and even more important now where we have this AI transformation where like it's very easy to create good looking results, and it becomes even more important to have someone who's reliable, who really checks if the draft or whatever we have at hand really delivers what we expect.
And how did you came across with AI? So, like most of us in 2022, when OpenAI started with their chatbot, or what is your journey into that field, or was your
I'd
journey?
say I came from two sides. On the one hand, in our law firm, in our family law firm, where I have been working for like 8 years until last year, I had kind of a role like a head of IT and business development and strategy. So I was working a lot on our processes and on also on our products, and of course we had the usual digitalization projects for our file management and document management and so on. I think everybody did that during the last 2 decades. But on the other hand, well, most, I hope. And on the other hand, I always had this like focus on the business topics. That's why I had an MBA study program that I did before I became a patent attorney, and I always was interested in the strategy side of the business. So I asked myself, what are actually our service offerings for our clients, and how will they change, and how new how can we create like new service and value opportunities with digital technology? And so, for example, like 3 years ago, I created new services for our SME clients, for example, for patent monitoring services that were digitally automated in some way. So it was easier for their employees in research and development or the IP department to treat this like flood of information that they had with third-party patents. And AI is just the logical next step. It's like a new digital technology that helps us even more in treating not only numbers and like deterministic processes, but unstructured text. And so I came from this like business perspective, how we can improve the business strategy of our law firm, like using technology to create new value propositions. And on the other side, I had all our digital processes at hand. And then I had this one moment, actually. I was sitting at home on my couch, and I saw this keynote for Microsoft Copilot back then, Microsoft Keynote. And when I first saw that you could not only chat, we also saw like ChatGPT already back then. But then we had this possibility the first time to access documents and vast information libraries with, for example, within our own databases, and they showed how you can actually ground these chatbots in actual business data. And
like
it was right immediately, it was clear to me, well, this is going to change everything for us, because like most work that we do in our like usual processes, if it's not a high level litigation, consulting, whatever thing, but in our daily work as patent attorneys, in our files, like we take documents, we analyze their meaning, and we have a certain pattern of like examination strategies, and we put different pieces of information of these documents together. And it was pretty clear that it's going to change a lot. Maybe not within the next 5 days, but within the next years, definitely. And so I grew deep. I dig deeper and deeper and deeper and did like online courses for different like AI systems, RAG systems, tried to build my own stuff. Yeah, that's how I came to the topic.
Yeah, I got you. I mean, two things are very fascinating for me. So first of all is your background. So that you have an MBA and then you started to become a patent attorney. So that's very unusual. And that, to me, that explains a lot about your perspective on the whole profession. Sometimes I made fun of an author, a very well-known patent attorney, very experienced, who wrote a book about patent strategy. And I should write a recension about the book, a kind of report. And the first thing I checked is, so what is this book saying about competition? And this was a book about strategy without even mention the term competition. And I asked myself, what kind of strategy is that? Okay, so fascinating. Yeah. So that's one thing. I mean, strategy without competition, I would say, makes no sense. But okay, maybe it's a completely different definition of strategy, but this was not in the book. So that's one thing. And the second is that you said there's this enlightening moment. And I had the same. I met Satya Nadella 2 years ago, because I'm happy to have Microsoft in one of our organizations at the CTO forum in Germany, and Microsoft is heavily supporting that. And I met him, and he and his team, and he explained to a small group what the vision is with how agents will work, and how this multidimensional logic of different domains and how that come together. And it was absolutely mind-blowing. And that was exactly the same feeling which you reported, that you said in that minute, I realized that things will never be the same again. So this is this Bill Gates information at your fingertips. And first we laughed about it. I said, okay, he mean the next encyclopedia on the next CD-ROM. But I mean, today we live in a completely different world. compared to 10 or 20 years ago. And it is not that shocking, but at the end, it changed everything: how we work, how we live, how we navigate, we organize everything. And it's to me, it's absolutely fascinating that this is also the same to you, that you had this enlightening moment to see very clear that things will change in principle and not a little bit.
And especially because we are in this very interesting phase of this transformation where I think it becomes clear to most of us that there will be a lot of change, but it's very hard to predict how it actually changes our business exactly, which will be the use cases that will bring most value. There are different ideas, people are trying things, but I don't know anybody that has really like played the whole game already. And I think it's comparable to the period of the 90s. If we look at AI more as a not a tool, not one program that I use for drafting or for prosecution work or whatever, but rather as a base technology, like large language models and the agentic layer above it, is a base technology like the internet and the HTTP protocol was in the 90s. When we had the first use cases of, like, for example, email, no one saw, besides maybe the postal services, that email is going to change whole industries. Of course, communication was faster and so on, but the business models weren't that affected. But then online shops, on the other hand, changed everything for retail. And players like Amazon changed several industries within a couple of years. And there are still, for example, bookstores today that sell books, but they can only survive if they have like either a certain specialty or niche or additional online services. So they changed their business model. They had like hybrid models where they offered like personal service in their stores, and additionally, for example, online stores and other digital services. And I think this can be similar in our profession, where there will still be attorney work that like we know it today. The whole strategy consultancy in IP, high-level litigation, edge cases, and so on. I think this is not going to change that much actually. And I think people still want to have a personal contact to an expert that they trust. That's why personal brand that you're talking so much about is, I think, becoming more and more important, because the trust element is becoming more important. Who's actually making sure that all the systems, the technological systems that we build that become more complex, actually bring a result that I can trust. So it's not only his personal work, but also the system that this expert manages and oversees that has a reliable quality. And I think that's why our profession also changes the role. You mentioned competition. I think like 30 years ago, when I think about the business model my grandfather and my father had back then in the 80s, there was like companies, law firms joking, you're only an established law firm when your annuity fees cover your fixed costs of your office. People, they didn't have competition actually. There were so few experts and so much work, and globalization was not still a normal thing. So they made so much money for growing for big companies just managing international work, because they were able to communicate in several languages with foreign partners and have access to them and manage these different systems. No one is paying for that anymore. Globalization is just a standard. And and the same with annuity fees and so on. Parvis is like taking €8 per case, and other law firms took like 200 for the same service. And if you didn't adapt to that, if you tried to take all the efficiency gains without changing your pricing models and having your client actually take part in these productivity gains, you lost the game. And then I think in the last 2 decades, it changed. Like some law firms who didn't adapt ran into problems like we discussed earlier with the questions for today. I think today there is competition, like there is in every service company. I don't know any other service company that doesn't have any competition.
And I mean, there is a quite interesting paper from Malte Kölner from the publication of the European of
We
the
talked yesterday.
and he wrote about the market, and that the market is by far not that fast expanding compared to the number of patent attorneys, and also that is more or less shrinking, especially in Germany. And so very interesting developments, definitely, to the question, what is the profession in the future? So Johannes, you became shortly a member of the board of the German Chamber of Patent Attorneys. So you see a lot of law firms, you talk a lot with these guys. So I would say you have a very, very good overview of what's going on. And I think we agree that AI, as you said, is a cross-functional technology, a basis technology, so it will pop up everywhere, and quite often we won't see anymore. We won't call it AI, like we don't call a smartphone a computer. We don't call the navigation system in our car a computer, because computers are vanishing and they are everywhere. You don't call your TV set a computer, but basically it's a computer and a screen, and it's not a television anymore, basically. So and obviously, I think we can also agree that it will affect dramatically the profession of patent attorneys. So that given that two aspects, what would you say when we talk about an individual patent expert and patent attorney, let's say, and also a patent law firm? Yeah. So what would you say in terms of organization, function of that activity? What can we expect? What is your perspective on what will change, and how can we adapt at the same time?
I think the differentiation is very important that you just made. We have to differentiate between law firms as actual professional service companies, and individual lawyers as expert service providers in person. I think the person, as a patent attorney, we mostly have to understand the technology that we're using, not so deep that we can actually develop our own software, but how is AI, large language models, and the agentic systems, how are they actually treating information, and how can I customize them and use them, not only just by prompting, but for example, creating custom GPTs, assistants, or simple workflows. This whole context engineering, how do RAG systems work, and so on. That's why I, for example, created impulse formats and advisory offerings for law firms, just to help them understand what is the technology, how is it working behind the tools that I can buy.
Yeah.
Because of course, at the end, I can always choose. It's a make or buy decision. Do I want to just buy a product like Microsoft Word back then, instead of a typing machine, and learn how to use it, like email? We had to understand how it works, and just use it properly. And that's the basic task. Then I have to actually understand the technology behind it, maybe even in the first place. And then I have to get to the point where I can make educated decisions about make or buy, to actually buy a tool on the market, because it's just more efficient, more productive to just do that. Or is there other technologies or even service providers that I can use to create my own service offering to my clients? And there's several opportunities right now that are developing every day. And so we have this base technology understanding. And then for law firms, I think they have to understand, first of all, that the systems become more important. It's not only technology, it's processes and people. We are still in a world where most managers and entrepreneurs, like the owners of the law firms, see themselves more an attorney than a company owner.
Yeah.
They're both. You can't be only one. Otherwise, you're not even allowed to own a law firm. And you need the knowledge to be respected by your people and everything. I don't say that we have to change to become managers overall, but we have to understand that the importance of the role of the manager and the company owner. The business side is becoming more complex. We need to focus more on this side, build up more knowledge and understanding, because the systems take a more important role in our service offering for the client.
Yeah,
And
got you.
that's management, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my impression is, so of course, when we talk about this transition, this transformation, many people have the analogy to the internet, and there is this famous video where Bill Gates is invited by David Letterman, and David makes, so it's mid 90s, I think 1996, and David makes just fun out of Bill Gates, okay, and Bill tries again and again to explain the internet and what that will be. And David Letterman again and again compared it to things which already existed. Yeah, the radio, the television, the movies, the video recorder, whatever. And whatever, however, Bill tried to explain that this is fundamentally different, David didn't want to see it. And okay, that's just fun. But these old white men like David have a strong tendency to say, okay, nothing new on that fucking planet. It's always the same. So yes, come on, we have the next tool, the next machine, which is doing something a little bit different. So, but at the end, nothing will change really. And my impression is that compared to the internet, to the mobile, so even smartphones, it took many years before we had this billion effect of smartphones out there, and that smartphones changed our habits, our life. Why? Because it was tangible. You have to produce these things. You have to have these rare materials, these electronics, and you have to put it together in a classical manufacturing site. I mean, meanwhile, we have dark factories in China. They produce smartphones without any people anyhow involved. But basically, you have to manufacture a physical device, like computers, like the landlines for the internet, whatever, that were physically based transitions. Now with this AI, so this is just on top of an already, as you said, pretty much digitalized world. So, and that makes it so incredible fast. And one thing is, so when I'm not a partner, Tony, lucky enough not to do that. But my impression is that we are at a tipping point. So 1 or 2 years ago, the industry said, okay, no, we don't want, we want our expert, and the expert should work for us. So, and meanwhile, we have a stronger tendency, and this, I'm sure this will become even more strong, that that the industry says, okay, we have less time, higher quality, so we expect that when you want to work with us, you work with AI for us, for whatever, not just filing, all other aspects like FTO, whatever. We expect that you're using the latest and best tools to give us efficiency, but also effectiveness in terms of quality. And I think that is a qualitative difference to something which happens earlier. The speed and the change of the impression, especially from the users of the IP system. So what is your experience on that?
I think, yeah, it's fundamentally different to the normal digitalization, which was in our profession mostly about ease of use, but there was not this big efficiency narrative. And this efficiency narrative is a very dangerous thing for the profession, because on the one hand, efficiency or from a client's perspective is always linked to cost reduction. I understand, and of course, if there are efficiency gains, of course, as a client, I want to participate in it. Maybe we can share it as a firm, because if the firm is doing the work in like literally to develop this, to implement the systems, train their people, implement them in their services, and so on. Of course, they have to have a share for the investment. On the other hand, the client also wants a share. So I think we have to think in a win-win logic, how AI can turn efficiency into value creation for both sides. Only then, if it's a fair share, both parties will be willing actually to adapt. And on the other hand, we have to be clear that efficiency is not the only thing. What we want at the end is value creation. And sometimes, if it's unnecessary work, let's say, of course, we want to eliminate or reduce this part of the work as much as possible. So formal adaptation of where you need a certain minimum quality, but excess quality doesn't really help you. It's kind of a hygienic factor in all these areas. Of course, we want efficiency to reduce costs, of course, but it's not everywhere. For example, drafting. You have two different types of, let's say, patent drafting areas, or two ends of the spectrum. You have like really high quality business assets, strategic assets. Sometimes one patent application costs between, I don't know, 5,000 or 30,000 euro in biotech, or for example, in other areas, depending on the field, because it's very important that this draft is legally powerful to have strategic value if there's any litigation or negotiation situation where I have like fallback positions if there's unexpected prior art or whatever. And experts, high-level experts, spend a lot of time on really optimizing this one draft. On the other hand, we have these like mass applications for big companies who file like thousands of patent applications every year, or international filings in other countries, where it's mostly about an efficient process. Minimum, its quality is not important, but it's like a hygienic factor. We don't want excess quality. We want a good balance of cost and quality. And here, for example, AI is playing a much more important role already nowadays, and cost pressure for law firms is very different. So we have to see what is our service offering, what is the value proposition for our clients. And I think everywhere where we have like a more systematic, process-orientated approach, AI is becoming more important. And everywhere where like legal quality and special situations, high stakes litigation, and so on, it's playing a less important role. It's more a personal thing. But it's important nonetheless. We have to be clear what we're talking about, which process, which area, and which service we're talking about.
But when I understand you right, efficiency is just one aspect, right? So yes. It has to do with the organization of the law firm, with the interaction. I mean, some years ago, that was not that exemption, that still law firms send it letters. So, I mean, written letters on paper to their clients, and to ask for the admittance of certain renewal fields or whatever. I mean, sometimes things change very slowly, and these law firms think they are so safe and so uncomparable with their services and their personal relationships, that nothing can change. But from time to time, things change quite quick in that area. But efficiency is one aspect. The other aspect, what you mention again and again, is value creation. And I think that is the, from an economic standpoint, that's the even more interesting aspect, because this means that at the end we want to make the cake bigger, and we don't want to share the pieces of a given cake. So economy is not a zero-sum game, especially not when we can create innovation for our clients and which, or for the users of the IP system, which at the end creates more value. And what is your experience and what is your point on that? That we do not give AI just this connotation of efficiency bringer, which means, at the other hand, that that we have less fees and maybe we need less people for that. But we see it as a value creation mechanism. But that means we have to be innovative how we use it for value for the clients.
Absolutely. And I think a very simple example is a lot of attorneys actually see their work as, I get a file, and that's mostly a official procedure towards an office or a court, where I have an order from a client to file an application or whatever. But I think we have to think out of these like officially formed service lines, because where we actually create value is guiding non-experts in the IP field through a very complex, fast-developing, high-stakes field of intellectual property, especially patents. I think in patents it's even higher than in other soft IP topics, because technology brings another component in it. And I think in this field, the need for help, I'd say, overall, is not diminishing. That's where I actually do not agree with Mr. Kölner. I like him very much, and his analysis is true in many parts. But I think the scope of the focus is much too small. My work as a patent law firm should not only be like treating cases, like European patent applications. Of course, if the number of patent applications is shrinking or stagnating, of course, this market is not growing in a narrow sense. But for example, the number of overall applications, the vast flood of patent information is increasing in a speed that people in the company have a very hard time to actually navigate this field and to identify the real risks and neglect and filter out the non-important stuff. Take, for example, patent monitoring. It's a very good example. Patent monitoring, a lot of people, also IP departments in bigger companies, they are also actually service firms. They're internal service firms that provide a service to the internal stakeholders, management and R&D and so on. And what we often do as a profession is we just filter, let's say, new patent applications of other competitors and just throw it to the R&D department or whoever as an Excel table, spreadsheet, or simple PDF documents, and say, handle it. You tell me what I have to do, and then maybe I work again.
Exactly.
And that's not the point. If you take the problem from them and solve it for them, we have new business.
I would say you touch, from my perspective, you touch two absolutely mission critical issues. The first is, what do we call the market? Mm-hmm. And for whatever reason, okay, sometimes it's comfortable, to reduce myself to something which I, from the law, the only one who is allowed to do it. Okay, I have no competition besides of the fact that other patent attorneys could do the same. So,
and that's what we've learned.
And what?
And that's what we have learned.
Yeah, exactly. So that's my home base, let's say. Okay, I feel very comfortable. That's my home base, and that's it. And this is what I call market. So, but the market is obviously much bigger when I try to create value and I try to understand really what are the needs of the clients. And to be honest, I mean, at the IPBA Connect, the IP Business Academy, we work with hundreds of subject matter experts, and I always telling them, don't come up with, you are a patent attorney, you file patents. I'm not interested in that. Everybody knows that. But tell me what exactly is the value you create for clients. And then we started to discuss it, and then fascinating things came out of these discussions. We call that positioning, because it is something completely different from just filing patents, which is a kind of basic service which is necessary. But obviously, it to a certain extent, and in many times, it's a commodity. And that leads us to this next thing, which you touched, and which I think is also extremely important, is what exactly means being a service provider. And that means not reducing myself to something where I feel comfortable or safe. That's not the logic. The logic is I try to be the best kind of support and help for my client, which my client can buy on this planet. Well, that's something different, okay? And that means I have to change. I have to adapt to what my clients need, and not where I feel comfortable because of my whatever basic training or I don't know what. This is a wonderful solid ground, but then the question is what is really needed, and that's something different. That is a service provider behavior, and not these I'm the expert and you can call me, and this is the PDF list. You can call me when you think I'm helpful for you.
Exactly. We have to dive in the shoe. We have to step in the shoes of our clients, and this actually is the same for IP departments and law firms, because
Absolutely.
both our, even if I'm a law firm who's working mostly for patent departments, at the end we both work for management or R&D or whoever is actually creating the value in my client's firm company. So we're always kind of service providers, external or internal. And we have to understand what are the needs and the problems of my end clients, let's say, and how can I bring value in making life not maybe easier for them, or create stronger weapons against competitors, or stronger looking guards, let's say, to shock.
I like this phrase pretty much. So that's what a service provider is doing. I try to make life easier for my clients, and this is not so often that you hear that from an IP expert. You hear something different in terms of my client don't understand IP, they don't have enough money, they don't want to pay me, blah blah blah. There are lots of a lot of complaints that the client don't appreciate this work. Okay, so maybe this is a vice versa situation, at least. Yeah, and all what I want to say is AI is like a like a focal, like a lens, like a contrast paper, which makes that clearer and clearer that there is something value creation which we should go for as a branch, as service providers based on this knowledge of IP. Something else puzzles me around when I'm talking with IP guys. They always come up with a kind of for me it's calling like it's like an excuse. Okay, so it's a kind of excuse for not being interested anyhow about anything about IP, because I have heard that there is something with we are in a sensitive environment, and we are a law firm, a patent law firm, so data protection is a big issue, and all these AI is anyhow public and anyhow unsafe, and so I don't touch the field at all. So what is your point on that?
Several points, let's say maybe 3 points. First of all, it's not true. So the regulatory requirements are actually not that strict. Of course, there's not black and white. there is public AI offerings, especially the free AI offerings, ChatGPT and Claude public services that you must not use for confidential client information, not for unpublished patent invention information, but neither for any correspondence or whatever. Because the data is used for later training, not immediately, but later, and logged and used for other purposes. But there are other service offerings that are embedded in a legally confidential environment where data is not locked in that way, or at least there are like contracts, NDA agreements, also with sub-providers that ensure that it's legally compliant with our professional standards, Patentanwaltsordnung in Germany. So this is possible, and it's quite clear that several services, not only those for clients like Libra and so on, and Legora, not only for attorney specialized AI services, but also general industry services, several LangDoc, BlockBrain, MindGPT, they're like different service offerings for customizable AI platforms for business users that are also offering NDA agreements for professional secret holders like we are. So it is possible. On the other hand, there's a third category where clients say, even if it's legal, I don't want you to use it. And then I don't want you to use services that are maybe in US, in a US domain. So the US government could eventually, for national security or whatever reasons, access this information. So there's a third option where I can be even stricter, which I don't need to from a legal perspective, but maybe I want to have on-premise or in Germany hosted client or from German providers, which do not, which are not bound to US regulatory rules. So this is the whole, let's say, regulatory form. So it is possible. I just have to do the work and inform myself, and I can help with that if anyone wants to see what solution. There's like 3 different categories, and there are different solutions that I can use for that. The other thing
this is a take-home message, right?
Yeah, it is possible.
Of course, and it can be solved as any other data protection issue which exists. Yeah, so that's that simple, to be honest. Yes. Sorry, Johannes, we're running out of time a little bit, and I have another question which also passed me around, and which comes again and again from the practitioners. So I ask you for a short answer, and this is about competencies and training. So obviously we have to start from certain starting points, and some are like me, like physicists, so they like to playing around with technology, and they but that costs a huge amount of time. You make lots of mistakes, basically. That's normal. It's because it's playing around. So what is your suggestion or your, let's say, recommendation to get introduced to this field, to this interplay between IP, patent law firm organization, and AI?
I think AI literacy is important for everybody working in any law firm or IP department, and not just the attorneys, and has 2 components. On the one hand, we need to get in touch with the technology. So it's good to have a safe environment, and actually it's for the beginning, for the getting used to phase, let's say, it's important. It's not so important which technology it is, if it's Copilot or whatever. It's important that it's safe so I can use it and get used to it in daily work. And then on the other hand, I need guidelines for all my employees. It's actually a legal obligation to train them. And that means not just using it, but understanding the technology at least a little behind it. How is the data treated? How are agentic systems working? What are the different components? What is the LLM? What is the agent doing? How I can create workflows and so on. and then rules which kind of data can be used for which kind of AI, which functions are possible for which kind of data and which are not. For example, internet search must be treated carefully, so I don't unintentionally disclose client information through online search. So they're like different guidelines that everybody in my company has to know, and they need access to it. And then if they have the basis, we pick a use case, a real use case, and see how we can use these AI system for this one use case, not just general.
Just everything.
This general trying out phase may take 2 or 3 months, but not more. And then we need a certain use case with a certain value that is to be created there.
Yeah, I think with too high expectations, you can kill every starting project, every lighthouse project. So Johannes, thank you so much for taking the time and being so eloquent and enthusiastic about that topic, which I also think it is absolutely fascinating, and it is we are in the middle of a transition point here for the whole profession. To end, I say thank you already to you for being with us in the next experience exchange. So in October, we were at Weidmann & Weidmann in Munich. So next time in March, we are at ETL in Berlin. And this is a German-speaking event, but we will obviously, like we did it last time at Weidmann, we will report everything in English, and all white papers which are created for that, and all presentations and all discussions are reported in English. And Johannes will be with us in Berlin and will be there to discuss these aspects in detail with you in person. In addition, on the digital IP lexicon, we have 2 subject matter experts in addition. That is Sebastian Goebel, where you can find a lot of information about streamlining of patent drafting with AI, like Bastian Best is doing that. He's also with us, and I have also lots of information available. And Till Busman-Welsch. Till is about, so we had also an online and live interview with him, and he's about the question, what can we learn about decisions from the courts, and how can we predict based on AI the next court decisions? Are absolutely fascinating topic, a research project also in Germany from Fraunhofer. So that was that. So when you are interested to become an IP subject matter expert on IPPA Connect together with the IP Business Academy, we're happy to talk with you. We have an open call for 2026 right now, so we are funded again. And next time on the 13th of January, we will talk with Maria Boisewer-Weinans. So she is one of our quite often guest here in the show, and she will talk about her book and her concept of the psychology of IP strategy. Why? Because we have a big event with HTBC from the European Patent Office, with I3PM and the SAPI IP Business Academy, which starts early February, but it's already full. So we are fully booked with 120 people, 350 people applied for this strategy bootcamp. But the EPO said we will repeat that, and Maria will give us an introduction to that, and Benjamin Del Sol will give the presentation on strategy there. So that were the latest announcement. Johannes, thank you so much. I hope you are still a little bit with us on LinkedIn, because now at the end of our discussion, some very interesting questions. Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Sakshi. Thank you, Stephen. I hope Johannes will give you answers to that questions in the after show party on LinkedIn. So Johannes, thank you so much, and bye-bye.
Have a good day.
Have a good time. Bye-bye.